Victoria City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
I was born with a condition called type 2 SMA, or spinal muscular atrophy, rare neuromuscular disorder that often leads to early death. But he defies the odds. His father was quoted as saying, the hardest thing about having a disabled son is convincing him that he is disabled. So he invites us to come along with his wheelchair roller coaster life. So please welcome Ryan Bayley.
Thank you. Can you all hear me well?
Yeah.
I'll pick this one. How are you all feeling today?
Good.
So my name's Ryan and I was born in Melbourne, Australia, Victoria. And at the age of about 18 years old, I was diagnosed incorrectly first with possibly muscular dystrophy, which is a very similar disability to spinal muscular atrophy. And this was very hard news for my family to receive, as they had never had a disabled child before. See, my mum, she was originally with one man and he passed away, but she had a daughter called Nicole, which is my half-sister. And my half-sister is about 37 years old. And then she met another man called Peter, was married, and they were together and they had Brooke, which is my other sister, who is now 30 years old. And then after that, she left Peter and she met my father, and my father and my mother met in Melbourne and they had me. And then after that we noticed that at a very young age I was not developing as fast as the other kids. I was struggling to walk on hard surfaces and grass was not going to happen. I was tripping over, and my nana actually used to refer to me as a penguin because I used to have a little waddle when I walk around. And so today I'm going to be talking about my life and obstacles and things that I've done and crazy things that I've done. And at any time, if you have any questions, I have no problem answering. I'm an open book. What you see is what you get. Can't really hide behind what's going on. So please, by all means, be as invasive as you like, because I prefer when people ask questions as opposed to make a statement and make assumptions on what my life is like. So, as it was said before, my disability is spinal muscular atrophy type 2, and there is a total of 5 types of this disability, and number 5 being the best and number 1 being the worst. And unfortunately, number 1 is very, very sad. It's what we refer to as sometimes jelly babies, where when they are born, they have almost 0 muscle mass and they almost pass away within the first year or 2. So once I had been diagnosed, my mother and father were very concerned, and so they went to the hospital and seeked, just like any parents would, to see what they could do. You know, if you have cancer, you can do chemotherapy. If you have muscular dystrophy, you can take steroids. When you have spinal muscular atrophy, they say, do stretches and hydrotherapy and drink water, because there isn't very much that you can do with this disability. And my dad didn't like that opinion, so he was referred to a second opinion, which he often referred to as one of the hardest days of his life. And I apologise if I get emotional throughout today, but yeah, he went in and spoke to the doctor, and the doctor said, look, we've only ever had a few cases of spinal muscular atrophy, and the mother didn't find that there was enough treatment or anything that could benefit or help with the disability. So she decided to pack up, sell her house and her home and everything she had, and she took her daughter to Japan in order to see if there was something that they could do. But what ended up happening was the girl passed away, I think at the age of 15 or 16, and I was given the exact same life expectancy. But this was unknown to my knowledge, which I will have to backtrack, so I apologise for jumping around the timeline a little, but this is my story. And so with this disability, I suffered with the cold, and being in Melbourne, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes is a popular saying, but they moved me over to Queensland because my mother had a best friend who lived in Melbourne, and what happened is she decided to move to Queensland for the warmer weather because we always used to turn on the TV, see this famous ad, where else but Queensland. Me, my dad and my mother all moved to Hervey Bay, which is in Queensland, which if you've heard of Fraser Island, it's just across from Fraser. And I did start school in Melbourne because I didn't move to Hervey Bay, Queensland until I was the age of 9. And when I was in school, the first wheelchair I ever received, I was 4 years old, and my dad always told me the story. I don't remember it personally, but he said we went into this shop and there was wheelchairs all around all the walls and all along the floor, and he said, oh, what chair do you like? And I was looking at all these different chairs, and when my dad and the owner of the store decided to have a chat about my disability and things, I took it upon myself to find a working wheelchair in the store, and I hopped into this big chair. I'd never seen, let alone driven one before, and I just started zipping around left, right and centre, almost running over everything and dodging things and going in and out of the kitchen. And the guy said to my father, he said, he is single-handedly the best driver I have ever seen, let alone he's never touched a chair. So maybe I was a race car driver in my past, I'm not sure, but I did like it. It was a new lease on life at such a young age, because going around I used to have to walk and I would have my waddle and whatnot, as you will. So being able to get this chair was marvellous. It was giving my legs back and all sorts of things, and I really appreciated life again. And my dad, which I will speak a lot of today, he is an incredible father. It's what all parents should aspire to be, in my opinion, because he never let me feel like one of the weird kids, or he never taught me, oh, life is very difficult because you've been given this card, or, you know, it's very unfortunate that you have ended up here. He would do things like, when all the kids would go and do a marathon run around the school on the oval, they said Ryan cannot participate because he's in a wheelchair. And my dad said, but that's not fair, he's just like any of the other kids. And they said, well, it's been rainy and it's going to be very dangerous for him because he could get bogged, and we're not going to allow that. So my dad went down to the oval before the school opened about 5 in the morning, and he walked and counted every step and measured the circumference of the oval. And then he got this measuring tool that you walk and it clicks every metre, and he went around the school before it opened as well, and he counted the exact same circumference of the oval and made like a little perimeter for me. And my dad said, I've mapped out this way he can participate, and he's going to be able to do the exact same distance as all the other kids. And I would like my son to participate. And then, sorry, this kid struck me down. And so when I got there, all the kids came to the school, and about 4 or 5 of my friends went, oh cool, can we go with Ryan instead of the oval? So the teacher said, yeah, sure, that would be really good. So he's got someone to supervise, and there was a competition that whoever did the most meters, if you did 200 meters, you would win like a water bottle. If you did 800 meters, you would win a backpack, and so on and so on and so on. And it was also to raise money, so I went around to all these different restaurants and bars and cafes and things, and I'd say, hey, I'm going to be doing this race, and would you like to sponsor me? Would you like to sponsor me? And they said, yeah, sure, thinking that I wouldn't be able to run too far. And so I got up into this school and I started doing the rounds, and all the other kids started dropping off one by one on the oval, and there I was still going around my perimeter in the chair, and my friends, I had dropped from 5 to 3 to 2 to 1, who had decided to hop on the back of the chair because he was too tired to continue. And they said, all right, that's it, there's no more, the competition has ended, blah, blah, blah. And then my dad was coming to the school to pick me up, and they said, Mr. Bayley, we need you to stop Ryan because he is still doing laps and he's counting his trips, so he keeps going and his friends have stopped. And my chair had one little bar of flashing light, which meant you needed to stop 4 hours ago. And I'm going past my dad about this fast, and I said, I can do one more lap, one more. And he's like, okay. So I did one more lap. And at the end, we had the first, second, and third, and I think my numbers were leave me, but for instance, third did maybe 4 kilometres, and second did about 17 kilometres, and first was me with some outrageous 48 kilometres. And then the cafe owners and restaurants and bars were quite in debt for my mileage because they sponsored me and they thought, I have to give him how much? But it was great. It was it made me, instead of being the odd one out, it made me be the odd one in. And my dad has been marvellous at that. And any time I think, oh, woe is me, or I just wish that I could participate, or I wish I could do this, he would make it happen. And for that, I will always thank him. So my first chair I received in Melbourne, and I think this is maybe my 5th chair. And this one's great. It does all sorts of things. It's got a cigarette lighter on it, which I put a cigarette lighter converter into it, and then this allows me to be able to have a converter to then turn on my fridge if I wanted to with a PowerPoint adaptation, and it has 2 USB points, it's charging, it has headlights, apologise for the people in the front. It does all sorts of weird, wonderful things. I'd even show you it doing a mono up here, but I might end up off the stage and cut my speech short. But it's really good because I use my chair a lot more than just a chair. It's not just what I use to get around. I nicknamed my friend. I was staring at his feet one day, and I said, "You know what you should call your feet?" And he said, "What's that?" Because he was telling me all these weird and wonderful stories. And I said, "You should call them story makers." And he says, "Why's that?" And I said, "Because they take you everywhere and they tell a story." And then he said, "You know, I should call my hands, storytellers." And it made me think, man, if I had a GoPro of a time lapse of where this chair, well, all my chairs have been. Well, one, I would be sued, and second, it's pretty amazing to see just how you really can do anything that you want in life if you really put your mind to it. And as you can see in the photo behind me is a tattoo on my chest, right here. And it says, never live in an if. And I wrote this when I was about 15 years old. And it's a lot bigger than just seizing every moment. It's a very similar thing is yes, yeah, we never live in an if. There's a movie called Yes Man with Jim Carrey. Have many of you seen this movie? Yes? No? Okay, well in the movie, they're very simple, because when the movie came out I almost wanted to contact them for copyright, because I was like, hey, that's my idea. But the movie Yes Man is very simple concept. You say yes to everything. Someone says, hey, can you give me a lift to the store? And you're already running 15 minutes late. And you have to, no matter what you want to do, you have to say, yes, I will take you to the store.
Hey, can you talk against that, huh?
Exactly, that's why I'm sitting here. But before this movie came out, I created Never Live in an If, because my concept of the idea is, when an opportunity presents itself, take it, because how many times in life have you done something that you didn't think you would want to do, that you've done, or you've decided to swallow your pride, or you've grown some balls, or whatever you want to call it, and you've gone, you know what, I'm going to do it. And you do it, and you go, you know what, that was so great, I'm going to do it again. Or I'm so glad that I spoke to that person, or I'm so glad that, etc., etc. And then I thought more in depth about it, and that it creates memories and stories and experience, and like Songkran. And for me to be able to attend Songkran, I had to never live in an if. And by doing that, yes, I could have had my chair destroyed or whatnot, but that's why I wrapped it up like a very good Christmas present. And it was unbelievable. But the reason I like to never live in an if is because if you decide to live in an if and it backfires and it goes wrong, horribly wrong, a week, a month, a year, years, even sometimes minutes later, I find myself going, oh man, I can't believe I just did that. But there's a smile on your face, there's a funny story. I'm here to tell the bad things that have happened. And I believe that in my heart that the times that I've decided to do something and being glad that I've done it, then adding the things that I've decided to do and I'm not glad that I've done it and it's backfired, have always ended up funny, and they always weigh out the ones that aren't funny. And I prefer to be laughing and happy and follow good vibes. You know, I like to explore and see the world and travel and experience and live and be able to tell these amazing stories. And once again, this is because of my dad. Because, you know, when I got offered to go to school, I decided I don't want to be in a special school where they had, you know, special equipment or special teachers designed to look after disabled children. My disability only affected me physically, so I thought, why would I want to sit beside someone, you know, who's learning how to count 1 to 3? When I can go to university or go to college, I didn't want to hold myself back, just like what my dad had taught me. So I did. I attended normal primary school, and I will admit I was horrifically bullied, to the point where I was so bullied, I ended up having to move schools, because I I pleaded with my parents that I said, I know that they're just words and everything like this, but it's hard when every single day you go to school and it's, hey retard, hey spastic, hey loser. People used to put tiny little rocks in my wheels so that the valve would be slowly leaking, and then by the time I'd finish my lunch, I go to drive forward and I'd have a flat tyre. You know, these sort of things happen on an hourly basis. You know, the teacher would leave the classroom, and because I'm the only, not the only kid in the school, but the only, sorry, not the only kid in the classroom, but the school in a chair with a disability, I was very weird. Some liked it and some didn't. And instead of seeing it as a curse, I saw it as a blessing much later in life, because I get to sift through all of these shallow friendships and shallow relationships, these people that just want me for my money or good looks, which I obviously have tons of. But, you know, it was a great icebreaker. I couldn't say I have a learning impairment or I'm blind in my left eye. I would walk into a room and people would know who I am before I even had a chance to speak. And this is something I even to this day, I can go down the street and in Australia and I'll have junkies or store owners or people or drunks or, you know, people who are just what we refer to as Dero or bogan, which is an Australian term of a lesser person, someone who's not very friendly, etc., you know, rough around the edges. And I often leave my house, probably, I'd say at least 5 times a week, even till this day, and I'll go to McDonald's or I'll go out to see friends at a park or whatever, and I'll go past and someone will be looking at me like as if I just ran over their cat. You know, they hate me and I can feel it in their eyes. And I'll still smile and nod and go, g'day, or good morning, or how's the day going, or whatever. And they'll go, spastic, retard, loser. But this is a common occurrence for me. This is not something that affects me. It just is a part of my life. It's like not being happy that the sky is blue. You can't change the inevitable. So instead of being cynical, I always try and find the positive in every situation, no matter what. And that's. So I went to high school, and when I reached year 10 in my high school, we had this system that in year 11 and 12 you graduate into what they call senior, which is sort of a more advanced version of the schooling. And instead of becoming a senior student, I decided to excel, and I wanted to go straight into TAFE. So instead of doing the standard state graduation requirement, I decided to go to TAFE in order to, you only needed to pass math and English, and by going to TAFE you did it at the highest possible level, which then meant you could do another course on hospitality or woodwork or anything that you wanted, whatever the TAFE would offer. So I was interested in, from a very young age, I was always interested in music, gaming, like video games, or psychology. Even from year 9 in high school, I used to see a counsellor, and I used to sometimes see him and just say, oh yeah, you know, he was the school counsellor, and I'd say, oh, I'm just feeling a little under the weather today because, you know, someone threw their sandwich at me or whatever. And, you know, I moved, like I was explaining before, I did move schools when I was in year 6. And I said to my parents, I'm sorry, I I cannot do it anymore. I can't deal with how nasty these children are being. So after a year they decided, well, maybe we can try another school. So they moved me to another school. And for the first 2 months that school was fantastic. I was Mr. Popular. I was cool on a stick. Everyone loved me because I was different. But then the novelty wore off, and it was almost like they texted back and forth, these two schools, and decided to do all the same things. Let my tires down, tease me, try and push my buttons to get me to react. And it made me realize, oh man, I cannot wait till I get to high school, because they're going to be so much more mature and so much more understanding and acceptable. Because when I would go to a friend's birthday party, I would be the one with the adults, engaging and socialising, instead of watching cartoons or kicking a football and things like this. I would prefer to be one of the adults and engage, because that was something that I was able to do. And when I got to high school, I remember, I think it was my first or second week, I called my dad, and I was in absolute tears. I was bawling my eyes out for the first time since I had some toy taken off me when I was a little kid. And I said, I can't do this. I've done everything you've said. I've ignored them. I've been nice to them. I don't know what to do. And I said, but they made primary school look like heaven, because they are so incredibly nasty. Now they were going from retard to, they were doing things like taking my backpack off and putting dirty food in there and throwing my bag onto a roof, and I wouldn't be able to get there. Then they would disengage my chair so it would be manualised and put me at the top of a hill and let me go. And I had no physical way of stopping them. I would just be rolling to my destination. And once I rolled, and it flipped front ways, and I landed on my hands, and it was very, very, very bad. But in saying this, the friends that I did have and the people that I did surround myself by were very, very special. See, other friends of mine would have 20 or 30 friends, whereas I would have 5. But my 5 were untouchable. They would break noses for me. They would lift buildings. They would do whatever I wanted or whatever I needed, because they were real friends. And instead, my dad explained to me, he's like, I understand that it's really, really difficult, and at the end of the day, you know I love you and I will do whatever you want and I will help you any way I can, but you have to learn how to deal with this. This is part of life. And so I swallowed really hard, and I went back into the class, and they continued to tease me and harass me, but I didn't let it take over anymore. I became very quick-witted. People would be like, retard, and I'd be like, yeah, stop walking. Or they would be like, oh, you're gay, and I'd be like, no, I'm not gay. I'm very happy. I'm very happy with my life and where I am. Or they would be like, oh, you can't even lift up your arms, or just they would try and target me and find things that would hurt my feelings, and instead I would just take it on board, and I'd feel sorry for them, and I would just move on with my life. And they'd call me things, or they would put their foot under my chair as I go past, and I'd go flying, because throwing me around in my chair, and they'd laugh at me, and I'd be like, oh, can you do that again? That was like a back massage, And once I started challenging them on these things, they didn't know what to do anymore. They were thinking, I'm trying to annoy you, piss you off, or hurt you, or make you cry, or make you angry, and I would just laugh back in their face, or whatever. And it was a very, very good way that I decided to be able to come to terms with these things. And one thing about my life expectancy that I was mentioning before is that when I was in high school, I had a lot of people approach me, especially when I was about 15, and they said, "Ryan, are you going to die?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." Well, eventually, one day. And many people, I'm saying probably half the school came and they were saying, "Ryan, are you going to die when you're 16? A very specific age. And I said, no, for many years. And I didn't understand, to the point where I even approached my own parents. And I said, "Mum, Dad, everyone keeps saying I'm going to die at 16. Like, am I meant to die?" And they said, "No. You're meant to live as long as everyone else is meant to live." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I went on with my life, thinking that there was nothing wrong, that I was obviously disabled, and as I get older, my disability makes me weaker, so that's why I was able to walk. And, you know, 5 years ago, I was a lot stronger than I am now. But my mother and father, they opened up a business. And my mum was a little bit of a spiritual person, you know, with the incense and the crystals and the hippie gear, hence the pants. And she was very spiritual, so she liked to have clairvoyants, which are people who can read tarot cards and things like this. Now, my dad, as supportive as a husband he supported her in the sense that, you know, she wants to be like this, he will support her. And I was in the middle. I was not as spiritual as my mum, but I wasn't as anti-spiritual as my father. I was sort of this half-half. And because of this, we had a clairvoyant, and Mum had lots of people come in. "Oh, you know, I can see your future, you're going to be very rich," and blah, blah, blah. Okay, next. You know, next. And she was sick of them. She was sick to death that there was all these fakes out there. Until one day, she went to a party the night before, and she took a woven basket with her with fruit inside. I think it was avocado, and there was a mobile phone in there that she had left. And she was on the phone the next day, and she was speaking to a lady who was in Bundaberg, which is hours away from Harvey Bay. And she's, "Oh, hi, I saw your ad about, you know, looking for a clairvoyant." And my mum was at this stage saying no more, because she was sick of the fakes and she was sick of it. And she was like, "Look, thank you, but the position's been filled." And she said, "Oh, no, that's fine, thank you." Stopped talking for a second and then went, "A woven basket." And the lady goes, and my mum goes, "Pardon?" She goes, I don't know why, but I just saw a woven basket." And my mum's rolling her eyes at this point, thinking, "Oh, here we go, another one." And she goes, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." She goes, "No, I don't know why." And then, as this is happening, there's a lady across the street waving at my mum, saying, Leanne. So she goes, just sorry, one moment, Barbara. Puts the phone down, goes across the street, and she goes, "Leanne, when you were at the party last night, you left your woven basket and your mobile phone's inside." And my mum's just holding this woven basket, thinking, well, that's impossible, because this person and this person had zero contact. It was too coincidental, to the point where she picked up the phone. She picked up the phone of the office, and she said, "Hey, Barbara, are you there?" And she goes, yeah, I'm still here." And she goes, "You've got the job." So Barbara came in, and Barbara did some readings on my father and my mother, and she had a flawless record where people would come in and they'd leave bawling their eyes out, because Barbara was one of the few people on the planet that had a slight gift of some sort. And she scared my mother and father one day when she said, "I had a horrific dream about Ryan last night, and I don't want I don't want to scare you, but you can never, ever, ever let him go for a joyride in a car with friends. And then she said, why? And Barbara would not explain what happened for months, until the point when Mum turned around and said, you need to tell me. And in short, there was an accident, but in the dream, my friends had moved me into the driver's seat and let me have a go of driving the car, and there was an accident, and I had passed away. And because of this, and her track record of being too accurate, obviously they were quite forceful on this and not letting me get a car or go for rides with friends. But Barbara had a daughter, and my parents opened up to Barbara because of everything that she was and who she said. And they explained to Barbara that my life expectancy was 16 years old. And at this stage I was only 14 years old. And unknown to me, I was not given this information. And Barbara was a trusted source. And a few years later, Barbara was let go. And I only found out why when I was 18 years old. And the reason was because Barbara's daughter went to my high school. And then Barbara had told her the story of a boy that the lady she works for, her son is in a wheelchair and he's going to pass away, blah, blah, blah. There's a boy, that's right. This little girl, even though she didn't realise the weight of what her mother had told her friends. Her friends told her friends. And this spread like wildfire throughout the school. And this is why I had so many people approach me asking me when I'm going to die, to the point where when I turned 16, they became nasty and said, oh, well, what are you going to do? You're going to be dead next year anyway. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to die, and that's very confusing. And when I was 18, I finally decided to move out of home independently because my parents were not very healthy relationship. They would fight and break up and then get back together, and fight and break up and get back together. And this was a very, very repetitive process. And because of this, it made me have to live in one house and then another house, and I moved around all the time, all over the place. But then when I decided to move out and live on my own, I was sitting with a lady who was helping me fight for my case in Australia, saying, Ryan needs a home, this is the requirements, he's going to need this kind of funding for care, he's going to need no stairs, etc, etc, etc. And then as I'm sitting there with my mother, and she's writing it all down, she's going, okay, and what's his disability, and you know, how long has he been in a wheelchair, and asking all the medical questions. And then she said, life expectancy, and I went 80, thinking because my disability is going to eventually kill me in the sense if I die in old age, because everything is weaker and fatigued and deteriorates. If I die of a weak heart, then I was some point from a disability. So I'm sitting there going, I don't know, 80, I'm guessing. And my mum didn't look at me and she said 16. And I looked at my mother and I said 60. I said, no, not 60. I said, maybe 70 then. And she goes, no, 16. And the lady's going, and I said, no, what are you saying, 16? And she said, well, we'll talk about it later. And I'm thinking, hang on. What do you mean we'll talk? No, this is, and then the lady, do I need to give you a minute? No, it's fine. So we finished the meeting, and my mum and I sat in a park on the bench, and she said to me, do you remember Barbara? Do you remember her daughter? Blah, blah, blah. Do you remember school? And everyone said, you're going to die, blah, blah, blah. I said, yes. She goes, your father and I decided not to tell you because we didn't want you to live a different life. and my knee-jerk reaction was angry. I won't lie. I felt lied to, I felt cheated, I felt angry. I thought of all these girls that I could have gone, oh, I'm going to die next year, I'm going to ask her out. I'm going to slap that ass with it. Not really, but you know what I mean. I wanted to seize every moment, hence where Never Live in an If came from when I was 15. So I thought, I was so angry at first, and I went home and I drank, which was very bizarre for me to drink because I was upset. But then after a while, I wanted to get more info on this, so I called the hospital and I sent them some details, and I had a lady call me back about 3 months later saying I had 6 months, which was very bizarre because I'm still here. And I think because I believe, it's very weird. It's like I don't believe that I'm in a wheelchair. I do everything to make it like I'm not in a wheelchair. I have no full plates because I don't want to have full plates. I don't like a headrest because I think it looks weird. And I know this is going to sound very bizarre, but I actually hate people in wheelchairs. I love people in manual wheelchairs because manual wheelchair people are always getting out there and giving it a go, and they're pretty good high spirits. But a lot of people in my case are born with a disability, and their parents, it's so unfair you got given this hard card. Oh, it's so unfair that you're in a chair. It's not. But if you look at it, every cloud has a silver lining. Every negative has a positive. If you arrive early, then cool, you get to do things that you didn't get to because you've got time up your sleeve. If you arrive late, well then you don't have to wait for it to kick off. You can try and look at a positive in every situation. And you get a scar on your leg, it heals, you get a good story. And I just believe that it's a much better life that I live this way. Yes. And then so when I was much younger, I would always be tapping on all sorts of tins and bins and all sorts of things when I was younger, but because of my disability I would get older and I would get weaker. By getting weaker I would lose the ability to drum, but I always wanted to drum. So when I was in Queensland, I turned on the TV one day, saw my old city, Melbourne, and then there was these people doing this thing called beatboxing. And I was 9 at the time when I first saw it. And this is, actually, this is an ad that I did.
We got sound on this? Give us the sound. Is there sound, John?
For 75 years, Montrose Access has been supporting children and young people with physical disabilities and their families, providing therapy, respite care, recreational programs and support. Montrose Access is helping Queensland's most special kids. Help Montrose Access help these young people reach their maximum potential and see that their disability is not inability. Isn't that right, Ryan? To find out more, visit montroseaccess.org.au or call the number on your screen. Disability is not inability. For 75 years, Montrose Access.
Well,
Hey, do it live, mate. Do it
yeah. Well, when I was young, I wanted to keep doing this drumming, but I couldn't do it because of my disability. So I started beatboxing, left, right, and centre, and driving everyone up the wall. And after doing it for a long time, I ended up getting to beatbox with one of the world's best beatboxers, Joel Turner. And then this excelled my beatboxing career, where then I just took it by storm. I have won competitions, I have done events. I have been hired to perform there. I have done thousands, I swear, of beatboxing gigs in bars and pubs and clubs and restaurants and you name it. Because it can't be taken away by my disability. So this is something that I like to do, and I hope I don't annoy you. Is there anything in particular that you want to hear? No? Okay, so I'll just do, this is beatboxing, I guess. Now, when I first started doing this, I met a fellow by the name of Joel Turner, and he's been doing it forever. He's wrote music, he's performed on Australian Idol, he's won the World Beatboxing Competition of the Year, after beatboxing for only 3 months, he came to a close by town where we lived. My dad surprised me by taking me to see him. And Joel Turner and his bouncers realised that the place was not wheelchair friendly. So Joel Turner himself picked me out of the wheelchair, sat me on his own lap. His bouncers carried my chair to the top of the stairs, and then he put me in my wheelchair. And when he went back to his backstage area, my dad, quick thinking, went, and we followed them into the backstage. And Joel turned around and was, oh, hello, and we started talking, and this is my son, he's been big, blah, 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 blah. And there's all this video footage on VHS of my dad recording the whole ordeal. And Joel and I were jamming and beatboxing together in the backstage area, and he was blown away that I'd only been doing it a couple of months. To the point when he went on stage, he made sure I had front row seats. And halfway through his performance, which I videoed from start to finish, he said, I'm sorry, I've met someone tonight, and he's a beatboxer, and I just can't get it, I have to pull him up on stage. So Ryan, can you please come? And they moved all the fold-back speakers, and I came up, I was petrified, let alone I'd never done it in front of anyone, and I beatboxed with my idol at the time. And that's when it really kicked off. That's when I started doing it for many, many years, and got to travel because of beatboxing and won competitions and all sorts of things. And this was a really great way for me to channel. But when I moved out of home, when I moved out of home, I actually I had many girlfriends, but nothing too serious. You know, maybe for a year here, or maybe a few months here, or whatever. But this is Kirsten, my ex-girlfriend, and we originally met in Harbour Bay, and we were together for 2 years. And it taught me a lot about myself that I didn't like, that I had some anger that could be awakened in me that I didn't like, and as good as she was as a partner, but it taught me things about myself, and it taught me how to deal with people, and it helped me confirm that psychology is something that I'm passionate in, because we would fight to the point where I ended up getting a psychologist, and I was speaking to him about the relationship to the point where he turned around to me and he said, I don't think the right person's in the room, which was very helpful to hear, but also she had also opened my eyes to a different world, because like I said, I like to remove my my headrest and my foot plates and things to make myself less wheelchair, looking. And I have a normal bed because I don't want to look like a hospital bed. I have, a shower chair, and I have a hoist and things, which will be seen on the slide. But these are my equipment that I use to live day-to-day life. But I used to hide them behind the shower curtain so that when friends would come over to use my toilet, they would just walk into a bathroom, sit down, use the toilet, and then they would leave. And I wasn't dating her at the time, but we went out to the nightclub and we got drunk and we came back home together, and we didn't sleep together this time, but we were together. And she said, "Do you mind if I have a shower?" And I said, "Sure." And so she went in, and then I heard all the clanging of my equipment on my hoist, my shower chair, and I went white. I was so embarrassed because I thought, oh no, she's seen it, and I didn't want her to. Fast forward a few weeks, we ended up being in a relationship. Fast forward 3 months, she said to me, "You know that hoist thing you use? Have you ever used?" My next girlfriend, after I broke up with Kirsten, I met Jade. And this was Jade before I met her. And this is me and Jade about 2 years into the relationship when we got to meet Jackass. And I'll tell you right now, Wee Man is funny. He is a very funny man. But when Jade and I were together, she was a much, much healthier relationship than Kirsten. But unfortunately, she turned into, didn't know what to do. I was applying for funding, I was talking to people, I was outreaching, for family, everything. To give you an example, my rent was $680 a fortnight. My phone bill was $65 a month. My internet was $60 a month. And then there was food. And I was only getting $800 a fortnight from Centrelink. So I would only have about $30 a week to spend on whatever I wanted after my bills were paid. So I was rapidly going through my funds. I finally got on top, and that's when someone up above was moving pawns around, and I got a job offer on the train. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was talking to a complete stranger on a 6-hour train ride, and he was asking me all about my life, and I was telling him, and he liked who I was, and he turned around to me and he said, "I've got a job for you." And he allowed me to be able to be a presenter for a TV show that unfortunately has not turned out. But this job brought me to Thailand for the first time last year. And that is what brings me here to the stage today, because when I met him, I met a whole bunch of people, and the company was designed to make people with disabilities and in wheelchairs be able to travel the world independently and experience travel no matter what the obstacle. And it's great. The concept of this company is amazing. I met a lady who was one of the carers, and her name is Sabine, and she apologises that she can't be here today. But Sabine and I became very good friends, and this was in Thailand, and I was only in Thailand last year for 11 days, and when I was here we became such good friends. I explained to her this crazy life that I've lived, and I used to have friends call me up for a barbecue, and I would go there and I would eat and eat and eat and eat just so that I had food in my belly for the day, because I didn't have the money to go buy food. And then they would be like, "Oh, are you going to finish that?" And a doggy bag, and I'd take it home and I'd eat one bite of chicken and then put it in the fridge for 3 hours, and then eat another bite to graze throughout the day so I could survive. And then I was explaining this to her, she said, if you ever need help and you have nowhere to go, I know that we've just met, but you're welcome to come live with me. I used to live in Melbourne. I live in Harvey Bay. The company is in Harvey Bay. You know, there was all these pros. So she gave me a spare room and I moved in with her. And this was only just last year. And we lived together so well and became such good friends so quickly and so intently that she asked me, she said, Ryan, have you ever thought about buying a property? And I said, no, I'm not married. And she said, well, you don't have to be married for one, but you should consider it. And I said, well, you know, I never had the funds, but now, living with her, I had zero overheads. I had a job, and I had more payments from Centrelink, and I was gone from $30 a week to almost $1,000 a week. And because for at least 6 months of my life I had been trying to stretch $30 every fortnight, having $1,000 a week was, I had money that I didn't know what to do with. So I put it away. I saved because I thought, what if this happens again and I need funds to survive? So I put every cent of this away. And fast forward a few more months later, Sabine and I, after becoming very, very comfortable with each other and understanding who we are as people, she offered to buy a property with me and go half-half. And I saved and sacrificed everything in order to save the money that I needed to. And as of November 31st, thank you very much to only because of Sabine, I have bought my first ever property. And I now live in Brisbane and I have my own home that I share with Sabine, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, balcony, looks over the pool, and it's amazing to see just how one door closes but one opens. And I cannot thank her enough for doing something like this. But I can't have my family support me because I no longer speak with my mother. I no longer speak with my sister because my mother, when I first moved out, when I was 18, to go back a little, is she became very, very aggressive and intense, that I had moved out of home and that I was close with my father, which was a no-no in her book. And that my life was unrolling in, I was working for a company called Headspace and I was the manager there, and I was going to university. I was going to be moving to Brisbane. You know, I was with the girl Kirsten that I spoke before. I had a very busy and intense life, and my mother, she was seeing less and less and less of me, and she started to embarrass me. Then she started to become narky, and then this unfolded over the course of months to the point where then she went silent, and then a couple of months later again, she actually started to threaten me. And then her partner started to threaten me. Then I started to get death threats and death phone calls where they'd say, well, once you're in bed, you can't even roll yourself over. I hope that you made sure you locked the door at night. You know, I hope that you look both ways when you cross the road. And I don't understand why my mother did these things. I still don't to this day, unfortunately. I wish that I had the excuse of blaming alcohol, or I had the excuse of blaming mental illness or something, but I still don't know. And my ex-girlfriend, Kirsten, the one with the black hair, she was home the morning, and I was actually going to be shooting an ad for Headspace, which which is a youth counselling organisation that I was the manager at in Harvey Bay, Queensland. And I heard a knock at the door and I knew it was my mother's voice because she said, "Oh, hi, I'm looking for Ryan Bayley." And I immediately turned around to my care that was in the house and I said, "Do not," and it was too late. They unlocked the door and my mother came into my house and I said, "You need to," because she'd been death threatening me and everything, and I said, "You need to leave." And she did it. I think she was in such a fit of rage. I don't know why. She was in such a fit of rage that when she was coming down the hallway, she looked into the bathroom, unless she was looking for someone in the house who was a witness, I'm not sure, but she looked into the bathroom, didn't even see me in the middle of the hallway, looked into the bedroom, was still coming down the hallway, looked into the spare bedroom, and then that's when she finally noticed me at the end of the hallway in the lounge room. And she says to me, she goes, "You." And I said, "You need to get," and that is all I almost remember, because she hit me so hard across my face that my butt ended up on this armrest. And the first thing is I remember, "You need to," and then all of a sudden I was looking at my light switch, but the light switch was on top and the fan was on the bottom. But for some reason it was upside down, and I was looking at it thinking, why is it upside down? And then I realised that I was upside down out of my chair. And then as it started to turn, I felt my butt sliding off the armrest and I landed back in my chair in a daze. And I've gone, whoa, and I'm thinking, what just happened? Looking at my mother, and before I had a time to react, that's when the other hand was coming and she hit me and I ended up on this side of my chair. And then I landed back in my chair and I immediately reversed back to get to safety, and she laid into me, she beat me, she really, really, really smacked me around. And her partner, who was larger than life, was in the hallway stopping anyone being able to get through while she attacked me. And I was a lot stronger back then, and I was able to put my elbow up high onto her stomach, and I launched her backwards onto the couch with my chair. And she fell on the couch, which I wish it was a hard object, but she landed on the couch, and the partner turned around and he screamed at me, and he grabbed me here and he lifted me up to the point where my kidneys were laying on the back here of my chair, and he's bending me over backwards, smashing me in the face with his finger, going, "That's assault, that's assault." And here's me thinking, did you not witness what my mother just did to me for the last 2 minutes? But I screamed, and then my ex-girlfriend, she grabbed the partner and she's ripped him off, and then my mum came at me and attacked me again, and I tried to run, and it's a very ugly story, but I ended up having to get a DVO, which is a domestic violence order, against my mother, because this had built up over the course of roughly 4 to 6 months, and I pleaded that I wanted to work it out, but it was never going to happen. So I'm not saying that my values or my morals or my outlooks or advice or anything is correct, because I don't agree with my actions sometimes, but I am addicted to people who give me good vibes. If you are friendly to me, I'm friendly to you. If you respect me, I will respect you. And if you're my friend for 14 seconds or 14 years, I will take a bullet for you, because you're real to me, and I'm being real to you. And you know, if you wrong me, I won't try and seek you out and wrong you. I will just cut you, because I don't need. If I've got only a few months left or a few years left, we never know how long we have. So there's no point in following this life of what we should do or what we want to do. We should work where we want to work. We should be with the people we want to be with. We should do the things that we want to do, because as far as we are aware, we only have one life. And you know, if it's a roller coaster, then I want to make sure I have fun, and I want to enjoy it, and I want to make sure that when I get off the ride, that people see how much of a good time I had, and then have a go themselves and not stick to the teacups, because teacups are boring. Get out of your comfort zone, push the envelope, never live in an if. Seize moments and take opportunities, because you really don't know how long you've got, and there's so much in life that I have done that I have not even touched on, because it's always eventful. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to tell you anything you like.
Are there any questions, please?
Wonderful, wonderful speech, Ryan. Thank you. Very good talk. Are we permitted to know how old you are, please?
I've just turned 25. I had my birthday in January. Sure. Yes.
During my research on Edgar Allan Poe, I had occasion to go to the University of California, Berkeley, to celebrate Paul, to listen to Stephen Hawking, who is a foremost physicist out of England. In any event, he wrote a book called A Brief History of Time, and then from there we know where he went. What I want to know is, he had a kind of debilitating illness that kept him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, but he had an awesome depth of thinking that nobody since Einstein maybe has had. Now there you are sitting in that wheelchair, and I know you're a brilliant person, but I'm wondering if you've discovered anything about the intellectual side of yourself.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Often people say that we have 7 senses, and that, you know, if you lose a sense, other senses heighten. If you lose your sight, your hearing becomes better, and vice versa, etc. So I often think, because I can't do sport and because I can't be physically active, my mind craves to be my voice, my legs, my arms, I pride myself on challenging myself, and I like, I'm trying to think of how to explain it. You know, they say there's no such thing as can't, and I disagree. There is things that you cannot do, but it's about finding, as cliche as it sounds, the ability in my disability. And even when I've gone to job interviews, you know, I've said I might not be able to reach the top of the shelf and work the cash register. And, you know, you've asked me what my weaknesses are, and they are strength, physical strength, mobility, dexterity, you know, things like this. And I said, but I am going to promise you, as your employee, I will excel in every other field that I am capable in customer service, in punctuation, in dedication, in effort. If whatever I said, I might not be able to be a bricklayer, but I can, whatever I can do and you want me to do, I will try and push the boundaries with that. Does that answer your question?
Brian, would you agree there's a very thin line between love and hate?
No, in my opinion, because love should be unconditional, and I have many forms of love within me. The love I have for my father, the love I have for my friends, the love I have for the family that I am no longer attached. I don't love my mother, but she's my mother and I can't change that. But I find that hate is such a strong word. Yes, I said I kind of hate people in wheelchairs, but I don't hate them. I don't pity them either. I think it's just, sometimes words are overused and they lose value. Like love is overused these days. Oh, I love you, man, or I love this. And then when you say to someone, I love you, I like to hold off on telling someone I love them for as long as physically possible, to the point where my brain is scratching at its surface, trying to find words to explain my emotion before I say the words love. Because once it's said, it's kind of like sex. Once you've had sex, it's done. The deed is done. It's great to keep doing it, and you fall in love, and it gets better, and you make love, and blah, blah, blah. But once it's done, it's like virginity. It's broken. It can't be undone. So when I say I've loved people in the past, in my opinion, I have said it because I feel that I love them. Then again, I've gone, into another relationship and then gone, wow, I thought I did love them. But love knows no bounds. It just can keep growing with the right people. And this is why I don't speak to my sister, because I'm not saying that I'm right, I'm just saying that I have a different outlook. Because if I have a friend and I go see them and they say, man, you put on weight, or man, you stink, or oh, are you ever going to change your hair? Or they just put me down or go and be negative. I wouldn't go see that friend anymore, because they don't make me feel good about myself. There is literally billions and billions of people on the planet that you could bump into and be lifelong friends, like Red. And why would you surround your time with cynical, depressing, negative people that pull you down? Happiness breeds happiness, in my opinion. Happiness is key. Happiness, if you see someone laughing and you're in a bad mood, you might be like, but there is more potential for that to draw in positivity. So with my sister, Nicole, the reason I don't speak with her is because I thought, if you're family, and if you're family, we give family so much of a get out of jail free card because they are family. They just start with the letter F. We can choose our friends, but we can't choose our family. This is true. But why should a family member be allowed to treat you or do things to you, or that you would never even let a friend of yours do, just because they're your family? And I thought this at 17 years old, and I thought, no more. My other sister, on the other hand, is the opposite. She thinks that I'm the best thing since sliced bread, that the sun comes out of my darkest area. But she's a bit black and white. She's very black and white. I love the movie. It's the best movie I've ever seen. Here's a tip. Or 10 minutes in, I want to refund that as the worst movie I've ever seen, and I'm writing to the director as we speak. She is hard to deal with. So she's always been, Ryan is such a you've got to meet my brother. That's actually how I met Jake. she was like, oh my God, you're going to meet my brother. And then Jake met me and liked me. But it's, yeah, I think hate's very strong, and I hate very few people. I don't actually even, if there was anyone on the planet that I would hate the most, it would unfortunately be my mum. But I don't even hate my mum. I feel sorry for her that she has something wrong with her brain, that she had to kick out my sister Nicole at 16. She had to kick out my sister Brooke at 14. So she was a beautiful mother for the young years. I think my mother is a bit like a child, and my dad said one thing I always loved about my mother is that she is like a child, because she's so happy and goofy and funny and can be silly, but then at the same time she can't be mature. So that sort of contradicts itself, and I think when I started to grow up and I started to become mature, I started to sort of excel above her, and so did Nicole, and so did Brooke, and so I think she can't deal with those sort of things. But I hate.
Thank you. Yeah, Brian, I think I can safely say for everyone in the room that what you have done, what you have achieved has been quite inspiring.
Thank you.
And can I offer you a challenge?
Always.
Get it into print.
Yes.
Write your life story. And the man to talk to is sitting at the table down there, and I'm certain Ren would be more than happy to help you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good idea, man. Any more questions?
Hello. I have no question, but I would like to appreciate. I met him 2 weeks ago at my clinic,
Oh, yes.
and he's a man of spirit. He's a man to live a life. I really salute to his spirit with a zeal and alacrity. Great.
Thank you.
And he's a dag. Okay, thank you. That's it by the looks of it. Thanks, Ryan. Very good.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan, and very inspirational. We'd like to present you with a certificate for today's talk. Smile. Say cheese. Okay, Ryan will be interviewed for the YouTube, and be available after the interview for any questions anybody else might have. Okay, thank you, Ryan.